Your nervous system is the governing body of your biology. Period. It determines everything from how you breathe to how you think to how you sleep and ultimately how you recover and how you connect, love, and lead. And it all stems from that one simple thing. And so the primary question it's asking every single moment of every single day is this: am I safe? Hey everybody, welcome back to the Own It Show. I'm your host, Justin Rothling-Schofer, and again, I'm just so grateful that you guys would spend time with me and really just use this show as a platform to educate, empower, and equip yourself to take ownership of your health, because we know that if you can take ownership of your health, you can increase your impact, influence, and ultimately your legacy. And if it's your first time here, I just want to thank you. Thank you for leaning in. Thank you for stepping in and saying yes to what God's got for your life. And so today we're diving into one of the most misunderstood, underestimated, and powerful systems that's in your body, and it is called the nervous system. If you've ever felt like you've been doing all the right things, you've been clean eating, you've been training hard, you've been taking your supplementation, you've even been doing some cognitive behavioral therapy or doing something with a mental performance coach, but you still feel anxious, tired, inflamed, or stuck in a body that just simply won't heal, then this episode is for you. Because when we think about our bodies, I have to tell you this fundamental truth, is that your nervous system is the governing body of your biology, period. Your nervous system is the governing body of your biology. It determines everything from how you breathe to how you think to how you sleep and ultimately how you recover and how you connect, love, and lead. And it all stems from that one simple thing. And so the primary question it's asking every single moment of every single day is this: am I safe? Is my body in a safe environment? Is the room I'm in a safe environment? Is the action I'm taking putting me in a safe place? And the answer to that question, not what you think, but what your nervous system senses, determines whether you heal or whether you decay. And so that's what we're stepping into today, is understanding the nervous system, understanding this unique, complex piece of our body, and really going to deliver it to you in a way that is simple and simplistic, and ultimately something that you can understand. And so when we think about the nervous system, we have to understand that this is truly the CEO of the body. The nervous system is not just your brain. It's your entire internal communication network. So it's your brain, it's your spinal cord, it's your vagus nerve. We're going to talk a lot about the vagus nerve and how that is the main nerve that your body utilizes to create heart rate variability. We've talked about that before, why heart rate variability is the most important metric that we can understand as to how our body is handling stress and strain. It's that communication factor. So your nervous system is your brain, your spinal cord, your vagus nerve, your heart, and your gut, all working together to regulate every major process in your body. And now when you're sitting here thinking, Justin, how is my nervous system all of those things? How is it my gut? How is it my heart? How is it the nerves? How is it the spinal cord and the brain? Because this system interprets your environment and decides how your body should actually respond. And I think that's what's so cool about this is how we were created, guys. This is not some fallacy that I'm sitting here making up. This is truly how our bodies were generated. And when I come back to the biblical times and I just look at this all the time, and the tree of knowledge and wisdom that was in the Garden of Eden, if you flip that tree upside down, what does that actually look like? Well, it looks like the bulb sits up top, which is the brain, and then the branches and all of the things around it branch out into the nerves and the spinal cord. And I think that's just such a beautiful picture of how we were created. We were created to be connected to us, to our bodies. And the more that we can connect to our bodies, the better we can actually understand, are we stressed or are we not? Are we actually living a life based on habits, behaviors that are actually putting us in a position to heal, putting us in a position to thrive? And so when we think about what our nervous system is, it's the system that interprets your environment and decides whether your body should respond positively or whether it should respond negatively in a protective way. And what most people don't know is that you don't need to feel stressed for your body to be stressed. It's a very critical component because stress isn't about thoughts, it's about signals. The signals that our body is sending to the nervous system that it can respond to. So it's not logical. A lot of times it's upside down and backwards. The nervous system is simply responding to the signals, not to the logical things that you know. So a perfect example, I can be sitting here and I'm trying to write my book, Holy Health. As I'm writing my book, Holy Health, I'm getting all of these thoughts throughout the day going, oh man, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. And the more that I'm taking these on, I can actually feel my nervous system getting more stressed because I'm just holding on to these things. But the moment I write them down is the moment they disappear. And so mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, our body doesn't know the difference between these forms of stress. Real or perceived, our body doesn't know the difference between these forms of stress. Past, future, or present stressors. Before I go and do my high rocks races, I start thinking and visualizing about the race. I know it's coming up. I get butterflies in the stomach. A lot of people have said, I feel like I've felt that before. That's something that's happening in the future. And thus it's your body responding, and it's going to keep you on edge because it's knowing something's coming. And so that's why if we start thinking about something that's going to be difficult a day, a week, a month down the line, we actually take the stress on from that for the entire duration, which is why when finally that thing comes, it can feel like such a relief when it's over. It can feel like such sometimes a letdown. It's why we often get sick afterwards, because we've been carrying this and our body's been responding to a stressor for a month when actually all it was just an hour of time. That's all it really took. Another great example is if I threw a stick down in front of you and yelled snake, you'd explode and go, ah! And your body would ultimately get set up so that it could respond to the stressor, even though logically we know that's not a snake, it's just a stick. And so these are the things that we have to realize, is that our body is constantly responding to signals, and those signals are ultimately what make us either go into fight or flight mode or rest and digest relaxation mode. And because we usually don't have a great rhythm between those two, we stay stuck in this sympathetic fight or flight state that gives us this chronic overload of stress. Back in 2007, there was a study in Nature's Review's Neuroscience that found that chronic activation of the stress response, whether physical, emotional, or environmental, led to suppressed immune function, increased inflammation, poor digestion, and accelerated aging. And so that study confirms everything we just talked about, where when you're exposed to all of these stressors and you're unaware of them, the only response for any of these things from the body is sympathetic fight or flight mode. Why? Because the nervous system has one goal, one objective, which is to keep you alive, to keep you safe, to keep you in a space of high level functioning. And so if it lets you go into that parasympathetic mode, that rest digest mode, your body exposes itself to being hurt, to getting injured, to not being safe. It diverts all energy away from healing, all energy away from your immune function, all energy away from digestion, all energy away from hormonal balance. And this is why we get into this difficult health space. You don't lose in your health because you're weak. You don't lose in your health because this wasn't built for you. You lose in your health because your body is stuck protecting you. It's stuck in this protective mode. And that is so critical for us to know and understand. Because when we know and understand that, it all of a sudden goes, my gosh, if I start to look at the patterns in my life, I feel like I have gut issues, but I'm constantly nervous and worrying about things in the future. If I notice that I don't actually sleep really well and my mind starts to race at night and I'm exhausted when I wake up in the morning, how do we actually get our mind into a rest and digest mode, knowing that we are safe at night? Like, all these things start to come into play. I remember very early in my CrossFit and High Rocks career that when I would think about a race for a long period of time, or I would sit into that concept of a race for a long period of time, I would feel exhausted. Like, I'm not talking about a little bit exhausted. I'm talking about like exhausted at the end. And I would actually end up feeling like I was getting sick. And quite often I'd get cold sores, showing a decrease or a suppression in my immune system. It wasn't until I learned how to start to process this more efficiently, more effectively, but also start to replenish my body from a supplementation side and a diet side that I actually started to not get that anymore. And so these are the things that we have to come back to. And I want to give you some metaphors that I think will help you encapsulate this massive concept of the nervous system a little bit. I want you to think of it as like an electrical grid. Your nervous system is that electrical grid. When it's functioning well, every appliance in your house runs efficiently. Your lights shine brightly, your fridge cools down, your freezer goes a little bit colder than your fridge does, your Wi-Fi connects. But when the grid is unstable, even your most expensive appliances start to glitch. The light in the fridge starts to flicker on and off. The brand new oven will start to turn off. The fan won't go. Your Wi-Fi will come in and out. Your muscles are those appliances. So are your hormones. So are your organs. So are your thoughts. But none of them work well if the electricity or your nervous system is fried. And so that's a great way to think about it. Another one is like the smoke detector, right? We have the smoke detectors in our house, and Elise just actually pulled the smoke detector off of our roof because it was doing the beep, and then about a minute later it'd go beep because it was out of batteries. And so we had to take it down and ultimately get rid of that. But your nervous system is that smoke detector, and like any good smoke detector, it's designed to go off before a full-blown fire breaks out. And so if you've been living in stress long enough, your detector gets hyper sensitive. When Elise and I cook, not that we're bad cooks, we're great cooks, we cook a lot at home, but there's a smoke detector in our kitchen, and when the oven is so hot, the smoke detector must also be detection of heat. And so we cook our chicken or our salmon at 400 and we open it up. Oftentimes it sets the smoke detector off even though there's no fire. And it's just like your nervous system. Because when we've been living in that stress state for so long, it suddenly starts screaming every time the toast burns, or every time you open that oven and the heat rises, every time there's some steam coming out of the shower. The nervous system is going to go, or the smoke detector is going to go off. And it's just like within our bodies, and you can probably start to sense this, is that it's every time somebody cancels a meeting, every time your heart rate spikes, every time your spouse walks into the room, every time you get a phone call and you don't know who that phone call's from, every time a new meeting get added to your calendar, every time you wake up in the morning and you look at your phone on social media for the first time, every time you think about going and doing that next workout or doing those things. There's no real danger, but your nervous system is beginning to react like there is one, because that's how we've trained it. That's how we've leaned into it. That's what we've exposed it to. And it's impossible to heal in that state. You can't lead from that state. You can't love well in that state. But yet this is the state that we live in. This is the state that we operate in, which comes into this space where I own it. And again, it's right on this tattoo that's right on my arm. It says live different. We have to live differently. We can't live in the state we're currently in because we can't heal in that state. And so it's only when you choose to live differently that you can actually start to realize life that's different. Not because you're doing anything that is crazy and remotely different, but rather because your nervous system now feels safe. Your nervous system now is, I can downregulate, I can be calm, I can be present, I can relax, I can truly heal. And that's what we're looking for. That's what we're trying to create, and being able to understand that with our life. And so I've talked about this a lot, but when we think about our nervous system, we know how critical it is. But how do we actually know the language? How do we know what kind of state we're in? That's because the nervous system doesn't speak English, but it speaks rhythm. How unique is our design? How amazing and how we were made is that based on our heart's rhythm, not how many beats per second, but rather the time intervals between successive beats, that rhythm is the communication of our nervous system, communicating through heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is the language of our body that's communicating how well we're adapting to stress and strain, giving us that deep insight, that big understanding as to how the nervous system is operating. So heart rate variability is the language of the nervous system. The nervous system governs the health of the body and how safe we are. Heart rate variability is a critical number. It is greater than your breath rate, it's greater than your muscle tension, it's greater than your sleep cycling, it's greater than your circadian rhythm alignment. It ultimately takes all of those things into consideration and gives you one metric that says, hey, how well are you doing? How safe do we feel your body is? And I just love that it's the clearest marker of nervous system health. And when we are able to understand, that's when we can win. So I'm going to get a little sciencey here for a second, because I don't want you just to think, oh, heart rate variability, important number. A lot of people just say, go measure your heart rate variability and look at it and feel like this is something that you can now take ownership of. I want you to understand what it actually is scientifically. And so if I was to have a resting heart rate of 60 beats per minute, and you listening to this were to have a resting heart rate of 60 beats per minute, most people would think that both of our hearts were beating at 1 beat per second. 60 beats per minute divided by 60 seconds equals 1 beat per second, right? Simple math. But that's not how our body works. What ends up happening is our heart has a time interval between each successive beat, and heart rate variability measures the time variation between those beats. And so when we think about it, high degrees of variation, 797 milliseconds, 467 milliseconds, 582 milliseconds, 645 milliseconds, high degrees of variation means that your body is adapting really well to stress. You've got a great rhythm. It's relaxed. It's in a parasympathetic state. Conversely, when there is a very regimented, regular, low degree of variation between each beat, 547 milliseconds, 552 milliseconds, 541 milliseconds, 565 milliseconds, low degree of variation, more rhythmic, it means your body's not adapting well to stress and strain. That this is something we have to look at and something we have to talk about, because the lifestyles, habits, and behaviors you're engaging in are not giving your body a good rhythm in a place in which it feels safe. In fact, it feels chronically unsafe, thus keeping you in a space of sympathetic overload. And so a high HRV, high variation, means your system is adaptable and resistant. A low HRV means it's stuck and rigid. In 2021, there was a 150x increase in studies on heart rate variability in 2021. It was a great peer-reviewed journal in the journal Psychology. And what it found was that higher heart rate variability is associated with better emotional regulation, mental clarity, immune resilience, and cardiovascular health. And when we think about this data, when we look at this data, it's so critical and important to know that, because it goes right back to what we talked about and what we know from how the biology is set up. If your heart rate variability is higher, it means you have a better ability to have immune resilience. What do we also know about the way that our body functions? That same review we studied back in 2007 in Nature Reviews Neuroscience said that no matter what, when you have a chronic activation of your stress response, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, environmental, it drops immune function and increases inflammation. And so if all of a sudden we see those correlations, when we're in a stress state, it drops your immune function, it increases inflammation. And we know that HRV is the measure of stress state and the measure of resilience. If we have a low HRV, we also see a decrease in immune resilience and a decrease in emotional regulation. You start to see that this is the language. This is it, guys. I can't lean on this heavy enough of why it is so critical to know, understand, and truly take ownership of your nervous system and heart rate variability. This is the metric if you are wanting to actually heal your body, understanding HRV. And if we understand HRV, we can have an insight as to, oh, you know what? It's not because I'm broken. It's not because I live in Chicago. It's not because I don't have the financial means. No, it's because of the way that you're living. It's because of choices that you've made every single day that has left you in a chronic state of feeling unsafe, and thus your nervous system feels chronically overloaded and has kept you in a stuck space of sympathetic overload. That is what this is all about. This is why to own it, we don't just look at performance. We measure resilience. And HRV tells us if your nervous system can handle the life that you're trying to live. And 99% of people, the answer is no. We're barely hanging on. We're barely getting by. We see chronic illnesses on the rise. We see anxiety on the rise. We see people with burnout on the rise. We see people with chronic sleep deprivation on the rise. We see all of these things happening because we are regulated. We are truly not being able to manage the nervous system well, not because we don't want to, but because we don't understand it. And at Own It, we aim to synthesize that information. We aim to bring it to a point where you can truly know heart rate variability at the deepest depths, so that now you understand nervous system. And if you understand nervous system, you understand the entire governing system of your body, which is truly amazing. And I often get conflicted at this next space because with what I'm about to say, this is where a lot of times it's misinterpreted. It goes into this new agey type of stuff. But before health can begin, before recovery can happen, before performance can occur, there's one word that overtakes everything, and that one word is connection. The nervous system regulates through connection to community, to your spouse, to your kids, to your own body, to God. And when you get connected, you become calm. You regulate. This is why touch lowers stress. This is why prayer lowers stress. This is why family gatherings lower stress. I tell these two stories all the time. Is when I go and I speak at events and I'm teaching on this and I do workshops or whatever I'm doing, whether it's keynotes or workshops, I usually bring somebody up on stage and I say, can you show me your heart rate variability? Can I look at your data? And whether it's through Apple or a Fitbit, Polar, Garmin, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I usually say, what's your day, week, month, 6-month, and year-long averages? And we look at them, and the majority of people are in the low 20s, sometimes maybe in the 30s, which is very low for where it should be comparatively. Typically, if you're 50 years of age, you should have a 45 to a 75 HRV average. And so most of these people are operating at 50% of where they should be. And what I'll do is I'll actually go through their data day by day. It takes usually about 2 to 3 seconds for me to take a look just through their history. And I'll pull like the highest day, something that just is, there's usually 3 or 4 data points that are just sitting on the outside. And I'll pull this one data point and it'll be, let's call it an 80, where their average is like 25. And I'll say, are you somebody who operates off of a calendar? And they're like, yeah, I'm very calendared. I can tell you what was going on that day. So I say, what happened on April 24th? And they're like, oh, that's very specific. And I say, yeah, what happened on April 24th? And so they'll go through it and they'll be like, it was a Saturday. And I woke up and I actually went and played men's league soccer. And then I came home the afternoon and went shopping with my kids. And then we went and had a family dinner and went for a family walk at night. And I think we were in bed pretty early. When we look at that, they were active, they were outside, they were in the sunshine, they were increasing oxygen through their body through running, playing soccer, they were doing something they loved, they were playing with their community, their friends, people they enjoyed, they were with their family, they were with their kids, they were spending intentional time, they had a family dinner together that night, they were connected, they were close. These are the things that happen. They're like, oh my gosh, these are things I never often do. These are things that are not regular. Had another person who had a HRV average of 22. I'll never forget the numbers. This was a talk I did in St. Louis. They had a number of 22. And all of a sudden I saw this number and it was 104. And I said, talk me through this. This is, I think, one of the biggest discrepancies I've ever seen. And I went through and I said the date was January 8th. And the guy's eyes got as wide as saucers. And I said, do you remember what happened on January 8th? And he looked at his calendar and he was just like in shock, going, oh my gosh, this is a little weird and freaky. And he goes, oh my gosh, I got baptized that day. And I said, tell me about the experience. He was like, we were at a retreat and we were in Costa Rica and we were walking in the jungle and I just had this overcoming feeling that I wanted to get baptized. And we went to this natural pond with a waterfall and I got baptized right there and it was a supernatural experience. And I was like, how amazing. But it comes back to show the truth that the nervous system regulates through connection to others, to God, to your own body. And the first step to healing isn't behavior change. The first step to healing is connection. Connection allows the body to shift into this parasympathetic mode, the rest, digest, and restore state. And if you've been disconnected from your body, if you've lived from the head up, if you've ignored the signals, it's time to come home, it's time to reconnect, it's time for you to heal. Because when your nervous system feels safe, your biology can start to thrive. But it's only when that happens that can start to occur. Parasympathetic is the rest, digest, restore state. Don't want you to miss that. I'm repeating that for a reason. The sympathetic mode is the fight or flight, the stress state. And so we need to have a great rhythm between the two. How do we go into one, out of it, and into the other? We have to be able to get there. And this is why in Holy Health, one of the frameworks I'm going to be teaching about is connect, challenge, and calm. How do we connect first thing in the morning? How do we challenge ourselves throughout the day? And how do we calm ourselves at night? And if we can truly get back to that, it's going to be amazing to see how we can continue to break through and start to put ourselves into a true healing state for where the body actually comes. Because you're probably not sick. You might just be unregulated. You're definitely not broken. You're just definitely stuck in a sympathetic state. And so as we've been listening to this and we start to resonate with this, I want you to come back to the truth that you were designed to heal, you were designed to thrive, but it requires us to live differently. We have to live differently so that we can now hold on to these concepts that are going to give the body what it needs, which is to feel safe in a space where it can start to heal itself. Because the nervous system is the overarching, governing piece that really matters the most. And so here's what I want you to do. Here's what I need you to start doing. Number one is I need you to start tracking heart rate variability. I need you to use a wearable, begin watching the rhythm. Don't change anything. Just see, okay, what am I doing every single day? What is my heart rate variability every day? Is it high or is it low? Understanding that there's nothing genetic that's going to be like, oh, this is the other irritation I have is whenever people see that their HRV is low, it's, oh, maybe I'm just one of those people that has a genetically low HRV. No, guarantee you it's because you're not sleeping, you're constantly stressed, you're constantly striving, you're not connected, you drink regularly, you eat poorly, you're dehydrated, you don't put yourself in a rhythm that is set up for your body to succeed. So as long as we can be humble enough to absorb it and see what it is and take on the language, that's when we can start to actually see change. So number one is track HRV. Number two is create morning and evening rituals that are going to focus on connection, breathwork, hydrating, praying, light movement, sitting and having a conversation with a loved one, spending time, not even saying anything with a loved one. The third one is ground yourself in community. Get engaged in community. You can't regulate alone. So is that a church community? Is that a athletics community? Is that a gym community? Is that a coaching community? What does that look like? And then number four, as we go through all three of these things, you'll begin to know your body, because intimacy with your biology is the starting point of freedom. And we can't get into freedom if we're disconnected from our own body, the thing that was created and given to us to be able to go and execute on whatever it is that we were called to do. And so if this landed with you today, I want to put this on your radar, which is Own It Optimization Day. This is where we go deep into this work. We test HRV, we 3D map your heart, we scan the nervous system, we build rhythms to let your system finally exhale. And this is happening in September. So September 11th will be the first one, December 11th will be the second one. In order to come to Optimization Days, these are completely free. You have to be an Own It client. And so go to ownitcoaching.com, click on the book a link call, and you can actually understand what that might look like for you, what your journey looks like. And if you're like, hey, I don't want to be an Own It client yet, but I do want to look into these optimization days, you can actually get a VIP day with me down here, and you can talk to our team about what that looks like as well for you. When you go and you click on that website and you click on ownitcoaching.com and you click on getting your call set, if you bring up you heard about this on the Own It Show podcast, you'll get special pricing, so make sure you bring that up when you go there. But I want to be able to do this work with you. I want you to be able to realize the truth, that when your nervous system finds safety, your souls remember who you were always created to be. It's in a state of safety. It's in a state of healing. It's in a state of thriving. Because this is not biohacking. If you want biohacking, you're going to go somewhere else. This is healing. This is spiritual. This is holy. This is different. So I want to thank you again for joining me, because you need to heal first, lead different, and own it. We'll see you next week.